Ultimately, if you love animation, don't stop. Do it for fun, and don't hold yourself to an unnecessary standard either. You don't have to beat anybody. You're just doing it for yourself. And I think that's the most important thing.
Hi everyone, this is Pierrick from P2design. As most of us, his passion for animation was triggered when he was a kid, and he never gave up. From creating Minecraft action shorts to astonishing anime-style production using a homemade version of Blender, if you don't know him already, discover Dillon Goo and the Dillon Goo Studio through this new interview. But before we get started, a bit of self-promotion. If you want to learn animation, rigging and much more in Blender, discover my extensive courses on P2designacademy.com. Learn actual professional techniques or enjoy all my exclusive free character rigs only on P2designacademy.com. Hi Dillon, how are you doing?
Good, Pierrick. I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine too. Getting, waking up slowly but surely. That's fine.
Yes.
What's your name? Where do you live? Who are you for the people who doesn't know you already?
Yes, well, my name is Dillon Goo. My address is private, but I live in Texas. No, but I live in Texas, the United States. That's where I'm based right now. Of course, our studio is fully remote, so we have people all around the world, but I run the studio from Texas. My main sort of I guess you might have already guessed it, we do run a studio, an animation studio on YouTube, Dillon Goo Studios, under the channel name Dillon Goo. And we've been making animations I've been making animations for probably about almost 10 years now. And the studio has been around for probably around, I want to say 4 years, around 4 years.
I generally start my interviews with some quick warm-up questions.
Okay.
I expect fast answers, like one-word answers. Okay. Don't freak out. It's going to be fine. What's your favorite drink?
Water. I just love water. Okay. I don't drink much else except for water.
Okay. Favorite color?
Green.
Okay. Kung Fu or karate?
Kung Fu. I'm Chinese.
Katana or rifle?
Oh, katana is just cooler.
Action or emotion?
Action.
Your favorite movie?
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay.
Probably. Yeah.
Favorite show?
Code Geass. Anime.
Your favorite artist?
Ooh, animator, I think Yutaka Nakamura.
What's your favorite band or music artist?
Ooh, right now I would say that probably belongs to Polyphia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, Polyphia.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
fantastic guitarists. Yeah. Tim Henson. Gorgeous. Yeah. Really, really good.
And what if cheese didn't exist?
Oh, you can't do that to me. No, if cheese is too good not to exist. If cheese didn't exist, I'd probably starve. I don't know what I would do. I'd be gone forever.
Cool. A little about yourself, but how did you get into animation? You know what?
Yes, so my biggest inspiration in getting into animation was Monty. He was the creator of RWBY. He worked at Rooster Teeth. He also created a lot of other things like Haloid and Dead Fantasy, which are his own personal projects based on other franchises. But that was my biggest inspiration when I first saw his stuff. And immediately I was like, I have to make something. Like this is so inspiring. Like I didn't realize one person could make something so cool. And so I ended up being moved to download 3D software. And so what happened was I actually downloaded all the software that he mentioned, like in his behind the scenes and stuff. And there was like 5 or 6 of them. I was like, wow. One of them was like Poser. The other one, that's like his main software. The other ones were like Particle Illusion. And I tried them out and I was like 12 years old. I had no idea what any of these things meant. I was like, I'm trying to move this thing. It doesn't work. I don't get it. And I immediately gave up. And I decided to go into film directing instead to scratch that itch. And I actually did film for several years. So I got a camera. I started doing directing and I got really into video editing. And when I was doing film, I started doing dance at the same time. So I was with my dance friends making a lot of dance videos. And so we started filming a lot of things. And after several years of filming and editing videos, I finally gave animation another try when I was around 18 years old. And then everything else was history, as they say.
Okay.
Yeah.
How old are you today?
I am currently...
if you remember.
I'm 30. I'm 30
Oh,
now.
yeah, you're young.
Yeah,
Oh,
I am 30. Oh, please.
okay.
Yeah, but
So,
I'm 30 this.
so you got into Blender for your first animations,
Yes,
or
so yeah, so when I was 18, I think my first animation was actually a Minecraft animation.
yeah,
And that was in Blender. And I think the very first animation I ever made was actually on my YouTube channel. So it is Drunken Boxing,
yeah.
which is the first video posted on the channel. That was the first one I made in Blender, and I started with Blender. I'm still using Blender. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And
Yeah.
why did you choose Blender at first?
So at first I actually chose 3ds Max. So there was a time period when I started getting into animation. I said I was going to learn animation this month, and I was like, I'm going to try it, and I chose a software. I was like, I guess 3ds Max is good. I heard it's okay. So I started learning it for about maybe 2 or 3 days, maybe a week. And then I was talking to my friend about it. I was like, hey, like I'm learning this thing, and he's like, oh, why don't you use Blender? It's free. I was like, interesting. Okay, you've tickled my fancy. I will look this up. And as soon as I did, I tried it out, and everything I learned from there was just perfect. So I was like, yeah, this is great. I'm not gonna leave this.
Okay, I was curious. So you half answered the question because I watched your first Minecraft, animation,
Oh, yeah.
and I was like, it's like for a first animation, let's say, or a first public animation. There was like great staging, great animation, great choreography, and I was like, wow, that's impressive for a guy that just got into animation.
True.
But from what I understand, choreography might be your dance passion.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And
Yep.
then staging and stuff like that. If you've been doing like editing for 6 years, basically.
Yep.
Yeah. Before.
Yeah.
Okay. That explains.
Yes.
A lot
Yes.
of
It's a
things.
great. I'm really glad you connected that, because a lot of people do have that question of like, for me, a big part of my background is dance and film. And like, because of those two things, when I started animating, I was already very comfortable with camera work, and I was already very comfortable with choreography. I also do kung fu, so I had a little bit of martial arts background in addition to dance. And so the rhythm of choreography and dance mixed with the rhythm of choreography with kung fu they're very similar. And then you have the camera work on top of that, and it's something that I got a lot of inspiration from Monty as well. But that ultimately led to me being fairly comfortable in that particular medium.
And why did you choose Minecraft at first?
Yes, good question. It's very economical, I think. It was the easiest thing to make right off the bat. I could have a lot of flexibility with the characters and what they looked like without having to model. So you could download skins on Minecraft. The sets also were made very easy. You could just download a part of the Minecraft world. You can extract it with like certain software and stuff. So it was very easy to create environments and characters, and you could immediately get started. There was also a good community of like rigs. You could always find something to use, whether it's like the items or it's the characters or it's the weapons, and all these things were already sort of like built for you in a way that people could just take them and use them in films. And that was the fastest way I could find to get immediately into storytelling and choreography and filming, which is what I was most interested in.
So then you talked about Monty, and I think you switched to a project, the Monty project.
Yes,
can you
I
speak
did.
a bit about it?
Very, very astute observation here. This is a great question. So not many people talk about Project Monty because it's been so long now, and it didn't really get a whole lot of traction outside of the time that I made it. But that was a project that I made after Monty passed. And, his passing hit me pretty hard. He was one of my biggest inspirations, and I was hoping one day to be able to meet him and talk to him. But that was, something that I regret ever being able to have that opportunity. But the project that I worked on was very much dedicated to the things that he inspired me to do. And RWBY was a big part of that. So the Project Monty project was sort of, could I create something that, Monty would have enjoyed watching, right? Something that was along the lines of RWBY, is very color-based. It had a lot of cool weapons that were also guns. There was a very heavy inspiration of just like, this is going to be something that I think he would like, or that he would have made, or something that along those lines. And so it meant a lot to me at the time. And I was streaming it at the time as well to sort of like show people like my process and things like that. And yeah, that project was a big exploration for me of just like trying to to go really hard in that direction to really honor his memory and stuff. And then what ended up happening was Rooster Teeth actually noticed those little tests, those animation tests that I did, and they ended up hiring me for RWBY Volume 3, which was a crazy turn of events because, yeah, I mean, I happened to be in the same city as Rooster Teeth at the time, and I was graduating college just that semester, and so it ended up working out. Yeah.
What were you studying, like anything related to animation or?
No. I wanted to do animation when I was, when I first started doing animation, I was around 18, 19 years old. And I was like, oh, I'm going to switch to animation. And then my parents, who are Chinese, were like, no, no, you're not
Find something serious to do.
Yeah. And originally I was actually going to be a dentist. So my major was actually biology when I first entered school. Okay. And I was going to go into pre-dental. And then after I discovered my love for animation, I was like, I can't be a dentist anymore. That's just not going to happen. Because I just knew how much I loved animation. I could not do it. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to tell my parents. And then we talked. And then what ended up happening was they were like, look, maybe you can choose a backup, that's more along the lines of your interest. Like maybe not dentistry, but something else. And so we settled on computer science. And I actually really enjoy computer science. So that was actually a pretty good compromise because what happened was under our school's like programs, there is a certificate that you can get for digital arts and media. So it's like a vague certificate, but you can get animation courses. You can get access to animation courses by saying that your computer science degree is related to animation. And so I started taking some animation courses in school. They're very beginner courses, so I ended up not learning a whole lot in those courses, but I met a lot of really cool people there. Because I was already a little bit ahead of the class at the time. But the class was really cool. The teachers were really cool, and I got to be in that little world without having to major in it. So I technically studied computer science, but I had some access to those courses at the time.
Okay. Can you just give us a bit of background about the project RWBY? What is RWBY basically?
Yes, yeah. RWBY is of course Rooster Teeth's IP. So it's RWBY, and it is Monty's original idea, basically, his concept, where there is characters that are basically anime versions of popular fairy tale characters. So like Little Red Riding Hood, Snow White, Beauty and the Beast, and Goldilocks. Those are the 4 characters that make up RWBY. They have their own names. It's Ruby Rose, Weiss, Blake, and Yang, accordingly. But the actual letters, I should clarify this as well. The letters RWBY stand for red, white, black, yellow. Okay. Yeah. And so that's like 4 layers of how that name works. But basically that's the show. And so they have a lot of combat and a lot of action scenes in the show starring these characters in a sort of magical world where they have like kind of fantasy creatures and stuff called Grimm that they have to defend their school and their towns against and stuff like that.
So you worked professionally for the studio producing this, okay? That was one of your first positions as an animator, right?
Yes, correct. Right out of school, I worked at Rooster Teeth as an animator for fight scenes and other things. I did a lot of acting as well, and I did actually lead an episode as well. I think it was chapter 11. So that was in the 3rd season of RWBY. And then after RWBY Volume 3 finished up, I actually left the studio to work on my own channel. And I just ended up staying independent. And so I've been working on my own channel ever since then. Yeah.
Okay. And they were working with Blender at that time too?
No, okay. They were not. So I had to learn a new software for Rooster Teeth. They use Poser, which is a very unorthodox software. It's not really well known for basically anything else. And so it's something that I got a lot of help from through Shane. Shane is actually one of the lead animators at Rooster Teeth and worked with Monty very closely. So he knows Monty's workflow very well and also knows Poser very well as a result. And so he was able to teach me a lot of the tricks of the trade for how to use Poser efficiently. Because if you try to use it like a normal animation software, Poser is not very good. Okay. Like imagine like Blender, if Blender didn't have a gizmo and you had to like each axis was like an individual dial that you had to. Yeah. It's not something that I mean, it's a little better than that, but it's quite clunky, and it can have its issues. But it can also be very, very, very good at assembling animation very quickly, especially if you have a motion capture library, which is something that Monty used extensively. Okay. So yeah, we used a little bit of a combination of hand animation and mocap, and Poser was actually great for that.
Did you start your project Legendary at the same time while you were working in the studio, or when you left?
Good question. Yeah, good question. So Project Legendary was, I think, the second project that I did right after I left Rooster Teeth. So the first project I did after Rooster Teeth was actually Katsucats, the first Katsucats. So that was the one where it was just like a white cat in a little dojo thing and it attacked a bird and stuff like that. So that was the first one. And then Project Legendary was right after that. So I sort of went in the opposite direction. First, I tried like this very simple, cute, toon shaded thing, and then I was like, okay, let's try like all out epic fight scene, and that was right afterwards. So that one actually took me several months. So I didn't finish it until the end of the year.
Did the Katsucat, the first Katsucat video, I guess it's the one you submitted to the Suzanne Awards? Okay.
Yes, cool. That was the Suzanne Award. I mean, that was a great time. Yeah, the Suzanne Award was a really big honor, and I was like, oh, I'm glad people like it. Yeah.
Okay, so can you tell us a bit more about the Katsucat and Katsuwatch era?
Sure, yeah.
Because this is how I discovered you, basically.
Yeah.
The Overwatch animation, the Katsucat first, but then all the Overwatch short animation, not little.
Yeah, wow. Did you play Overwatch at the time?
Yeah.
It's a great game. Yeah. It was a great game. I haven't played recently, but yeah, it's a really, really interesting time, for me when I was just starting back up my channel, essentially, because I had started my channel before Rooster Teeth, and I had created like Minecraft animations and League of Legends animations, and I had a couple other things on the channel, and when I went to Rooster Teeth, I basically had to stop working on my channel. It was something that it was a conflict of interest. I couldn't work on it, and so then I was like, okay, I'm gonna try working on my channel for a little bit and see where it takes me. And so when I first actually left the studio, I tried a few things that I noticed were not doing so well. When it comes to running a YouTube channel as a business, like there's a certain threshold you have to meet. So like when I first released like Katsucats, at the very beginning, it got like maybe 10 to 20,000 views. It wasn't like nearly as big as my other videos had been, because in the past I had gotten 14 million views on God's Fleet. Right. So it was like, for me, I was like, okay, so there's something that I need to keep trying at, like see if I can get something a little better. Tried Project Legendary. It only got 50,000 views, I think, at the time, a little bit better. But, and then I was like, okay, I think I know what would do well. And so I started looking into like, what is something, because I was playing Overwatch at the time as well, and I loved the game. And so I was like, what is something that, I have these cats, and I also have Overwatch models that are available and downloadable, and I was like, if I have aspects of these models put onto these cats, I could have something really, really cute, and I think people would really enjoy it, and it wouldn't be too difficult to make. And I was like, this is good, this is good, I'll try it. And so I started just mimicking the highlight intros because they were already amazing animations there on the game. So I was like, I tried mimicking the highlight intros, and I put these little masks and stuff on the cats that we had made, and I was like, this is great. This is actually really fun to watch, and it was a lot of fun to actually come up with like the different cat ideas and stuff like that went into it. And so I posted my first Katsuwatch video. At the time, my channel wasn't really picking up, and then as soon as I posted a Katsuwatch video, that video ended up getting, basically ended up getting 1 million views at the time, which was, huge for a channel that had basically been stagnant for a while. So I was like, this is good. Like maybe I actually have a career in this yet again. So I started building on that and been like, okay, I'm going to make some more Katsuwatch stuff. And I started doing the defense heroes, the healers, support heroes, the tanks, So I started doing all those things, and I figured out like this is gonna do well. People are gonna like this. And then I was like, but I also want to do fight scenes, you know, I'm obvious. So that's when I started integrating the fight scenes into Katsuwatch and sort of like showing like the cats fighting a little bit and doing some other things. And then we also eventually went into the Overwatch Unleashed series, whereas the human characters fighting, like Zenyatta Unleashed got 2 million views. That was a fun one that a lot of people enjoyed, where we got to really play around with like the characters themselves rather than just the cats. And so yeah, it started to evolve in that direction because I was trying to get to the point where I was like, yeah, we can do like full fight scenes.
Yeah, and it was great to, especially at the time where I was playing Overwatch quite a lot. You know, you were looking at all the Overwatch men, you know, inside the action animation. That was pretty cool.
Yes.
I'd like to open a little parenthesis about your YouTube channel, because really very early on you already used an avatar, you know, in your videos. It was like a drawing of yourself, I guess, a self-portrait.
Yes.
And then today you're using like the Dillon Goo everybody knows, you know.
Yes.
So how and why?
Good question. This is really interesting because I think I've undergone like 2 technical avatars before this. So I had one that was like a little drawing that my friend actually made of me a long time ago, and that was something that I ended up using just out of necessity because I had nothing else, and I was like, I'll just use this. It's fine. Before that, I just used my face. You know, my face can be seen at the end of like Gods Don't Bleed and the end of Ionia the Blood Moon. And a couple other videos. You know, at the beginning I just used my face. I was like, whatever. And eventually I was like, yeah, I'm gonna try to get an avatar. I think it's more creative. You can do more things with it. And after that, I actually tried to make a 3D avatar. So I had a 3D avatar that I sort of used like once, maybe twice. It was also just sort of like a self-portrait. And then eventually I was like, nah, these are not creative enough. I don't think it's great. They're not amazing. And then at some point, you know, I had I'd already like changed my logo to the Dillon Goo thing, which didn't used to be the case. It used to just be like a self-portrait as well. But now I have the Dillon Goo logo. The Goo logo was there. It had sunglasses. It was a green goo. And at some point I was like, I really, really want to have green hair and sunglasses because that is the Goo logo on my head. And I was like, that's going to be so good. I just wanted that. And I remember a long time ago I came up with this idea, like years ago. And this is like years before like VTubing was a thing. And I was like, I just want that character. And I couldn't. We didn't have a designer in place to make the concept art, and I didn't have like a modeler in place to make the model. And so at the time, I was just sort of like, we'll just do it eventually. I have other things to worry about. And then finally, we got something that worked, that looked good, and I put it together. Ruki helped out a little bit with I think the hair for my last model, but before that, I just threw something together from like the models that we had, and so I slowly worked my way up to something that now has like full facial tracking and full, you know, hair physics and animation. It's really cool. Yeah, and we might have another upgrade in the future. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay, cool. So you talked about like a lot about Katsucat and things, and you started to say I and then we. So I guess you were starting to work as a team, not on your own anymore. Maybe. So when did you start to collaborate with other like artists? Because I don't really know how many people are now working with you.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say that Katsuwatch was actually, I think mostly still done by me alone. Actually, this is interesting. So the very first project that I worked on with other people was actually the Overwatch Unleashed projects. Okay. So it was after Katsuwatch, but for example, like there was a couple where I worked with Cody. Cody's our effects artist now.
Yeah. Cody Winchester, right?
Cody Winch, amazing. Yeah. Yes. And so he actually helped out on like Moira Unleashed, which was like Moira vs. Mercy. And that was like a quick little project that he helped out on. And then after that, what was interesting is we actually got a sponsorship from Blizzard directly to make a Katsuwatch piece. And that was called Bastet Rises. Bastet Rises was a project starring Anna and her Bastet costume. And it was a Katsuwatch video. And it actually had a bit of a story and things like that. And it was actually crammed together in like a week, which I did the whole thing in a week because I didn't get the actual prompt until like a week before the deadline. But essentially what happened was during that project, I actually asked for Kai's help, Kai Lin. he's amazing, amazing animator, modeler, effects artist. He does everything, and he actually helped me model one of the characters, the little rat character that we had in that project. And so that was the first project that we actually worked on together. And then after that, I was like, I think I need some talented people to help me out if I want to scale these animations, because for the past 2 or 3 years I was doing Overwatch stuff. My stuff was good, but it wasn't getting as good as I would like, because I was having really fast turnarounds, and I was getting just enough time to sort of finish the project to a degree, but not being able to improve on it to enough that I'd be satisfied with it. And so I was like, I want some help on these projects, because I think they could really elevate the piece. I think there's going to be so much more they can do that we can work on together. And so what I ended up doing was I actually hired Kai to help out with more effects and animation and modeling for the next Katsu projects, but they were not Katsu Watch. So this is the beginning of our Katsu anime era.
Okay.
So the anime cats were the beginning of the studio, essentially. The very first anime cats that we did was, technically the first few that I did were under just myself. And so I did Attack on Katsu, which is like the Attack on Titan one. And then I think My Hero, the very first My Hero was also mostly me. And then once we started diving into more anime stuff, I believe we did One Punch Cat. That was the first one. And One Punch Cat was with Kai. So it was me, Kai, and then I think Ramen actually joined us at some point. I can't remember if it was that one or the second one, but I know that he worked on the second one for sure. And we were able to make more and more of these like cat anime videos where it was just the three of us. It was me, Ramen, and Kai, and then Cody actually helped out every now and then on effects during that time too. We did My Hero Academia cats, and then Saranen actually joined us next. And so we started building up this core team of like 3 to 5 people, and they're all still here with us today, and they're fantastic as always. And the studio has slowly grown since then, from the anime cats up into all the things that we've done until then. And so nowadays we have I think we have 9 animators, just number of animators. Yeah, we have 9 animators, and we have, several other, core members. Like we have at least 2 or 3 modelers. We have 2 or 3 riggers. We have mostly just me and Cody for finaling and rendering, which we're working on, and stuff like that. But yeah, we have an incredible set of teammates, and it's I think I'm very lucky to have each and every one of them.
Yeah, that's crazy, because when I started learning Blender, I was on CG Cookie with Cody. Basically, we were like pretty active on the forum and stuff like that, amazing. And we will talk a lot together, and we were both trying to make crazy, for the time, crazy complex rigs, or trying to wrap our heads around it. And I saw he was working with you. I was like, the world is so small, in the end.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So you pretty much answered when and why, you created the Dillon Goo Studio. That's perfect. What is the business model basically of the studio?
Yes.
How do you make a living out of those videos, or do you work on other things basically?
Yeah, no. So the biggest thing for our studio right now is sponsorship. So our Genshin projects have been funded by Hoyoverse, and that's been a big reason why we've been able to do it, and why we can support so many animators for these projects. And they've been really supportive, and we've been able to do project after project, and so that really helps us continue to get gigs and clients for other things too. We did an Arknights project I think earlier this year as well. And so these sponsorships help support the channel. But also on top of that, we also offer, things like Mesh Trails, which is an add-on that we made. Yeah. And we also have a couple add-ons that we want to release this year as well, which would be really cool. And of course, Goo Engine. And Goo Engine is donation-based. You don't actually have to pay anything. But there's a lot of amazing people who support the development of it, which allows us to continue, actually doing that. So that actually gives us enough revenue to at least support the development of Goo Engine, independent from the client work and things like that. So it's a sort of mix of things. What's funny though is YouTube ad revenue doesn't give me much of anything.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So it's not really like people think like, oh, YouTube is gonna. No, not really. Like YouTube doesn't pay me that much, unfortunately.
Okay. Can you, before we jump onto the Goo Engine, can
Yes.
you talk a bit about the AntiVirus project? Because
Sure.
I feel like it's connected maybe, or...
Yeah. I think so. AntiVirus is actually the project that we made to sort of announce Goo Engine. So Emily is the main character. She's actually sort of this digital sci-fi character that we made, and we were like, we're gonna make this sort of, really short, where we just sort of showcase what we can do with these types of characters and this type of animation, this type of rendering. And this is after a period of about a year or two of like R&D for how to make this type of aesthetic work in 3D. And so we did a lot of things. We did like, shader things and stuff like that. And what that got into is like, how do we make a project that really showcases all these things along with mesh trails, which we wanted to showcase as well. Yeah. And so we created this character that like has these like hand trails. Like as she fights, she gets these hand trails. It's really cool. They're like pixelated as well, so like look really nice. And then give the animators a chance to sort of show off some stuff, and then create something that feels like, oh, this could look a little bit like an anime. Like this looks like a 3D character, but it's like a 2D character. And so the idea was that it would give this impression that like, oh, if we wanted to make something bigger, we could. We could do something like this. And yeah, it was a pretty simple process. We sort of wrote it and put it together in a course of like a couple weeks, and we released it, and we were like, and guess what? We made this all in Goo Engine, and you can try it out yourself. So
cool.
Yeah,
I feel like it was really the project where you stepped up. At least visually, it was like, oh, like everything before was like super fun and stuff, but still it felt a little 3D or CG. And when I saw AntiVirus, I thought, okay, now they reach another level, And so, can you explain us a bit like more about the Goo Engine, because I guess like a lot of people don't know about it.
Yeah. So Goo Engine is a fork of Blender. It is also open source as a result. It's something that is should be shared, and it's something that ultimately we've been working on for the past 2 years for ourselves internally, just to see if we can get Blender to a point that we feel satisfied with the output of the render, essentially. It's based on Eevee, so it's entirely raster based. It's a very fast real-time renderer, and it's made for NPR. So what we do is anime style, and we did a lot of research on, well, how do we get 3D to look as 2D and anime as possible. And so we added a lot of things, mostly in the shader aspect of things. So we added like new shader nodes for separating out like shadows and like cast shadows from self shadows. So it's like a very important thing of distinction there. And also giving us curvature. So curvature detection in the shader allows us to accent building highlights and stuff like that along the edges, which gives a really nice anime look to a lot of things, because these are things that 2D artists do to sort of push the realism a little bit that 3D doesn't do naturally, right? So we're sort of faking these things, and so we have curvature in there that helps fake that. We have a screen space info node that sort of fakes like refraction, and allows us to do sort of like real-time compositing along with like some crazy like depth manipulation that we can do behind like a screen plane. So there's a lot of things here that we're doing to sort of hack the system to not do PBR, to not do realism, to not do any of those things that people have seen several times over, but to do something that breaks the rules in a way that 2D artists are more comfortable with. So we got a lot of feedback over the past 2 years before this release to really see what features we would need to implement in order to work on something along those lines, something with that aesthetic. And of course, we had a project in mind that's still going on. We won't talk about it yet, but it's there. And that project has been the big inspiration for how we get these sort of features developed. And of course, recently with our client work, we've been able to push that even further, really apply these new tools and showcase like, hey, this is what's possible with Goo Engine. And a lot of that is not possible with Blender.
Okay, cool. Super interesting. So, I like questions about, do you use it for client work? So yeah, you do.
There you go.
That's cool. Great. And what are the biggest challenges regarding the development of your own Blender branch, basically?
Yes, I think the biggest thing is understanding, like, so big shout out to Late as Usual, by the way, who is the main developer for Goo Engine. Yeah. I mean, genius. Yeah.
you need to give a look to his talk from the Blender conference last year.
Yes.
It was like amazing.
Yes, fantastic talk. Yeah, so Late actually he knows very well what the Blender source code can and cannot do, and that helps us a lot. And not having that knowledge would definitely make it much harder. So certain things like understanding, like if you need to do, for example, a curvature or something like that, the biggest thing is understanding what shortcuts Eevee has taken that make it difficult for us to achieve this thing. And so, like, for example, one of the biggest things for curvature is that we've actually been trying to improve the curvature node for a while. We're getting close to actually doing so, but the current implementation of it has a small sort of nuance to it, which is that it doesn't have a normals pass. And so we're only able to get a curvature node through the depth pass of Eevee, because Eevee doesn't output a normals pass until after shader compilation, essentially. If I understand that right. And this is very weird. No one really would think about this stuff except for late. So this is like, but like, this is why it doesn't work. And so these challenges happen all the time where we're just like, oh, Eevee was built in a way where we just can't do this. And like, if we wanted to do this, we'd have to build our own engine with like deferred rendering, like different like orders of operations for us to get what we want at a certain time. So shader compilation, you know, when that's done and stuff like that is very important, and what information we have access to changes how we do it. So that's been sort of like the biggest like technical challenge of how we can get Goo Engine working the way we want it to. And then on top of that, we of course have the artistic challenge. I would say, like, generally speaking, Goo Engine can do a lot of great things. And even now we have stuff like the screen space info node, which is incredibly powerful. But we haven't fully really like reached into the potential of that node yet. Like, we've started to develop more things with it, and we're like, oh my God, with this we could do that and do that. And so like just the time necessary to build these new sort of like tool sets based on the shader nodes that we've created has also been really rewarding, and is only possible with, you know, the more and more projects that we do as we sort of build upon our own sort of workflows. But yeah, that's been really cool to see too.
Okay, great. That's what's interesting and promising about it is also that you're like developing a pipeline tool around Blender, and I feel like it was the thing most professional at some point were pointing out, you know, sticking to Maya, you know, like Blender is not for professionals and stuff. And we saw that evolving for the last 5 years, I guess.
Yes.
So that's great to see, like a big, I mean, still a small studio, but doing big things, rising and creating its own tool. That's super, like, super promising, basically. So that's great.
I'm glad. Yeah.
So, I mean, more recently, you published like the project Progenitor. Like, those are like big shorts, like 15 minutes long. Yep. Can you tell us a bit more about this?
Yeah. So we just released episode 2 just last week, and episode 1 was also a huge undertaking. Both of those are over 12 minutes. I think the last one was about 12 minutes. Previous one was about probably 11 and a half, maybe 12 minutes or so. And so together they actually make a full 22-minute anime episode. And that was actually our original intention. We were going to release, you know, we wanted to release it as a full episode. Of course, that was like not practical with the time frame that we had. So at the time when we were approached by Genshin to make a fan animation essentially of like, what if, you know, Genshin was in a cyberpunk universe, you know, what would it look like? And they had proposed some ideas, and we're like, oh yeah, that could work. That's interesting. You know, something about, you know, the definition of what it means to be human. Like, let's talk about that. And so we used some characters from the game that were not traditionally human. And so, you know, people who play the game will recognize like Albedo, Raiden, and these characters are technically synthetic in the Genshin universe as well, which is kind of cool. But yeah, so what we ultimately wanted to do was to test our writing skills and to test our scalability of our productions and see, could we make something that resembles an anime episode? Like, could we do it? Just that was a big question. We had never done anything longer than like 10 minutes before. We had never done anything longer than 6 minutes before at this point, honestly. So we were just like, oh, that's gonna be crazy if we can do that. And the craziest thing, of course, is that we only had about 4 months to do it. So in the first episode, you know, we had to create entirely new assets and a whole city, you know, 4 characters, and we had to do all that with 11 to 12 minutes of footage within, I think it was technically 3 months, and we got 2 extra weeks at the end to add like a little bit extra, so we added like a couple more minutes to it at the end, and so yeah, that was a very difficult project, I'll say that much. But we got it done, and we wanted to prove to ourselves and, you know, to the audience that like we could make something that was bigger scale than just like these fun little YouTube projects that we've done. And I think the team did an amazing job. I would say that like it's clearly, you know, I think it's put together, you know, like it actually works. It's watchable. And I was like, yeah, I think this is good. And I'm really proud of what we were able to do, but it was a very hard thing. It was a very hard goal to achieve. But since then we have gotten so much better. Our pipeline, our animation, our general workflow has gotten much more efficient. And episode 2 was a lot smoother than episode 1. Okay. I'll say that.
What is the future of the studio? What are you like looking up to, or what do you want to achieve, basically?
Ah, man, there's so many things. Obviously, there's ideally we do everything right, but the biggest thing is, of course, like we want to continue improving on our pipeline and our workflow, and so we can accomplish a lot of projects similar in scale to a comfortable degree. So like client work is still going to be on the table. We're still doing a lot of client work for a lot of cool people, and there's a lot of potential client work in the future that we're really excited for. And so that'll be a big thing for us to continue and really prove ourselves and be like, this is what we can do, and build upon that knowledge that we have with each one. And then of course there is some original stuff that we want to make, and it's been something that we've been wanting to make for a long time, and every studio will say that. But like, you know, that's no surprise. But we do want to release something, you know, as soon as we feel comfortable, I think is the best way to say it. I don't want to give a deadline, but we do have something that we really want to release, and we've been working on it. But that's going to be in the works at some point. And then we also have more and more tools for people that I want to release. Like there's a lot of cool things for Goo Engine that we want to improve, and that'll just be with Goo Engine. And we also have some exciting things that might happen depending on sort of what we plan to do for the future of Goo Engine, which I might talk about in Blender conference this year. Yeah, because we have a talk about Goo Engine there, and we'll talk about sort of the future of that, which will be pretty exciting. And then we also have, you know, just some of the tools that we've made for our animators and tools that we've made for our modelers that allow us to do what we do. And we haven't released those in a very long time. So we're like, the animators even are like, hey, you should release this one add-on before the talk, because we use it all the time and we can't talk about it. I'm like, yes. Yeah, I agree. So we got to release that one. It's a great add-on for animation. It's fantastic. So that's something that we want to, you know, share with everybody else as well. So yeah, that's a big part of the studio's future plans.
Yeah. I guess like creating your own IP and stuff, that's always like a dream thing.
Always.
But yeah, if you want to do quality stuff, like it takes time. It's
absolutely. Takes time, takes money. The biggest thing is like, you know, you want to make sure that when you do the original IP that you're really happy with it, you know. And like for us, like being able to sort of build our pipeline on these client projects has been huge, because we get to actually, you know, test it out and be like, hey, this is actually something that we can do, but we got to improve this thing and this thing and this thing. And for next time, it'll be easier for everybody, and we don't have to crunch as hard, and we can do these things more easily. And now, when we actually release an original IP, we might be like, oh, actually, we can do this and this and this now, you know, and instead of trying to put it together at the last minute. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. On the more personal note, how do you balance your studio life and self-improvement? But I guess you do a lot of self-improvement through the studio.
yeah, that's true. Balance. Oh boy, let's see. How do you spell that word? I think I would say that like a big part of my life is work, and like I'm very happy for that. Like I don't really have any sort of like regrets, I would say, of like working too hard. I work all the time. I think like typically in a day I would work probably around like, you know, 10, 12 hours, maybe 8 if I'm feeling like I could take a day off, right? But it depends. I usually do take one day off a week, and I usually hang out with my girlfriend, and that's a very nice time off. I think that's the thing that like for me is very healthy, which is because otherwise I would work every day, you know. So that's the biggest thing. And I think if I didn't have work to do, I would probably work on something else, you know? And that's just the kind of person that I am. For a time, for example, like I took a little bit of a break from animation. I decided to learn music. So I was just like making music every day. And so like that, it just depends on like I just love to create. And so like if I'm not creating one thing, I'll create another thing. I mean, I'll do dance next time, you know, like this is just depends. Yeah.
Yeah, I got you. I mean, I guess we're both
Yeah.
built the same way, you know, like obsession. Yeah, I'm
Yes.
working, but I like what I do. So is it work really? But if I don't work, I'm just, you know, feeling like I'm get bored
unsatisfied.
super fast, you know, and you need to put you. So doing what you like or what you're passionate about, I think is a big chance. You answered, are you coming to the Blender conference? Yeah.
I did.
Okay,
yes.
That's cool.
I am.
That's
see you
great.
there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Do you have any final words, piece of advice for people watching, you know?
So many things to say, but I would say like ultimately, you know, if you love animation, if you love creating things, like don't stop, I think is the biggest thing. I think too many people like give up on it and just like don't do it at all and try to focus on other things that matter. But, you know, even if you can't make money off of it, just do it for fun, you know, like it makes the day a little bit better, you know, a little bit brighter when you make something. And don't hold yourself to an unnecessary standard either. You don't have to beat anybody. You're just doing it for yourself. And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you.
And well, I'll see you at the Blender conference.
Yes, I'll see you soon. Just a couple weeks away.
Yeah, cool. Thank you
right.
so much, man. See you.
All right, thanks so much, Pierrick. Bye-bye.